For my final project, I picked the topic toxic masculinity. This topic really interested me when we learned about it in class, and I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to analyze deeper and become more aware of this problem. After researching where it can be found in pop culture, I am very surprised as to how many medias I've known and loved over the years reinforce toxic masculinity. Even medias I watched as a little kid and are still popular today. I am going to discuss a film, TV show, two songs, and an advertisement that all reinforce toxic masculinity. For my literature and art artifact, I found two individuals who challenge it. So, first, what is toxic masculinity? Toxic masculinity is what can come of teaching boys that they can't express emotion openly, that they have to be tough all the time, and that anything other than that makes them feminine or weak. My thesis for this project is toxic masculinity is present in so many aspects of pop culture, but most of the society is unaware, which is making the problem worse. I interviewed my dad, brother, and two friends on what they think toxic masculinity is to start the support of my thesis. My brother, who was 15, and my friends, who were all 18/19, all had similar answers and said it had to do with how men need to be dominant and in charge over women. My dad had pretty much no idea. He knew the term, but nothing more. This shows a little knowledge over the different ages. I was surprised my dad knew the least because he is the oldest, so I thought he would have been more familiar with it.
Yes. So basically, what it is it's when men don't really. Hold on, I'm trying to think of a good answer for this. Like, I know what it is, I just don't know how to explain it. Isn't it like when they just feel like that they need to always be in charge and like be like a dominating male role or something, and is sort of what it is, right?
Yeah. Abusive, violent. Um, they abuse their power. They take advantage of other people, especially women, right?
Do you know what toxic masculinity is?
Yes.
What is it?
It is when a man is like trying to appear stronger and like more manly than another guy to impress a female. Some it's kind of close, but not exactly.
Do you know what toxic masculinity is?
Toxic masculinity. No, I don't. I'm familiar with the term, but I can't recall what it is. Toxic masculinity. No, I don't know what that is. Is it toxic masculinity? No, I can't. I couldn't define it.
Now I'm going to go into how toxic masculinity is seen in pop culture. Beauty and the Beast is a very popular film that gives off the wrong message. When the first animated movie was released in 1991, it was about a time where men saw women as a game to be hunted, and women being intelligent and independent was not appreciated. However, when the live action version was released in 2017, Gaston's behavior reinforced those same ideas. Belle is capable of doing things for herself and deciding who she wants to love. Gaston cannot choose for her, which threatens his patriarchal identity. He wants to marry her because she is the prettiest girl in town. The main message of this movie is supposed to be how Belle is a figure of resistance. She says no to him and does not give up, even when the story takes place at a time when men were dominant and women did not really have a voice or opinion. Belle can be seen as a feminist even in the 1991 version, which leads to Gaston's pride ultimately defeating him. I can see this message being shown, but Gaston and his behavior overpowers it, making this movie show much more toxic masculinity than Belle's resistance. A TV show that reinforces toxic masculinity is Riverdale. One of the main characters, Archie, is a 16 or 17-year-old high school student. In the beginning episodes, he is torn between his music and football career and seen as a sensitive character. However, as the show goes on, his character development opens up a discussion for the way he deals with the trauma he experiences after his dad is shot. Archie turns to gun violence and fistfights to deal with the trauma, and one of the main conflicts in the show is a rivalry between the gangs. Most of the show revolves around violence between all of the young characters. Riverdale reinforces socially constructed masculinity and the idea that the only way men can express emotions is through violence. The audience of this show is young, so this is shaping their minds and reinforcing toxic masculinity. I watched this show and I love it, and I was very shocked when I read how it strongly reinforces this. but now that I know why it does, it has changed my whole perspective of the show. The movie Mulan is about a woman who takes the place of her dad in early Chinese war because her dad is sick and would die fighting. In the movie, women are viewed as weak and men are viewed as dominant. Women were not allowed to fight in the army, and it was actually a crime if they did. They were killed if they were caught. Mulan disguises herself as a male and develops male qualities and skills to be a male soldier. When they are trained, their leader Li Shang, who is very strong, muscular, and manly, sings the song I'll Make a Man Out of You because the soldiers in training are very weak and not strong like men should be to fight in the war. In one part of the song that I'm going to show, he compares them to being weak like women are.
Let's get down to business. The Huns. Did they send daughters? I asked for sons.
Another song from Mulan is A Girl Worth Fighting For. When the soldiers are strong enough and out in the war, they sing about the girl they are looking for to keep their spirits up. Here is one part of the song.
Huh? That's what I said. A girl worth fighting for. I want her paler than the moon, with eyes that shine like stars. My girl will marvel at my strength, adore my battle scars. I couldn't care less what you wear or what she looks like. It all depends on what she cooks like. Beef, pork, chicken.
When Mulan is asked what she is looking for in a partner, she says, "How about a girl who's got a brain who always speaks her mind?" And all the responses from the men are, "Nah." And here is that part of the song.
How about a girl who's got a brain, who always speaks her mind?
This movie is supposed to be about women empowerment and how Mulan is just as good of a male soldier and if not better. But all these songs do are reinforce the traditional stereotypes of men and how they are dominant and strong compared to women who are supposedly weak and helpless. Most men advertisements are showing a muscular man as the main model. Not everybody who uses the products are muscular, ripped men, and not every man wants to have a muscular body or is even able to have one. So the little representation in the media just reinforces toxic masculinity. This model also keeps saying to look at their man, then back at him, and how their man could smell like the model does. This Old Spice commercial is just for body wash, and body wash has nothing to do about working out, being muscular, or heterosexual, but all those ideas are seen in this ad. There is an endless list of pop culture medias that reinforce toxic masculinity. There are more medias that reinforce it than challenge it, but I was able to find a book and artifact that do. A memoir and cultural analysis by Jared Yates Sexton called The Man They Wanted Me to Be talks about how the current definitions of masculinity are outdated and even dangerous. This book examines how we teach boys what's expected of men in America, which leads to long-term effects such as depression, shorter lives, misogyny, and suicide. The establishment of the racist patriarchal structure favors white men and the dangers of outdated definitions of manhood. An artist, Paul Richmond, has pieces displayed all over the nation in cities such as San Francisco, Chicago, and the state New York. His art reflects the generational shift in how masculinity is perceived. It reflects the gay artist's complicated relationship with masculinity. He understands the world through art, so he uses his paintings to display the other side of masculinity, from toxic to fragile. The company Gillette is trying to use this commercial to get a similar point across like the company always did with the commercial called #LikeAGirl. They are both promoting gender equality. This Gillette commercial addresses issues like bullying and sexual harassment. The tagline is this the best a man can get? And they are challenging the idea that boys will be boys is not an excuse anymore to ignore boys' behavior. However, they received an enormous amount of negative responses back, and some even boycotted the whole company. Men feel attacked with the boys will be boys statement and said it was made to make all men feel guilty for being a man. I feel like this commercial had good intentions of addressing the issues of toxic masculinity, but some people took it offensively because I don't realize the problem this commercial is trying to address in the first place. All of the artifacts I found relating to toxic masculinity can be related back to what we learned in class. The male feminist Michael Kimmel promotes the idea that neither gender has equal rights, and if there was gender equality, then men would be free. Men are trapped like women in so many aspects of pop culture that brushes over people's head, like the Old Spice commercial, where it's just an ad for body wash, but the main model is a person who fits the traditional stereotypes of what a man should look like. Jackson Katz was another toxic masculinity advocate, and he is an anti-violence activist, and he discusses the social construction of American masculinity. The show Riverdale reinforces the idea that men can only express their emotion through violence, which is the idea that Katz is trying to draw attention to and stop. This is the same with the article The Boys Are Not Alright. This article discusses how the reason why shooting rates might be so high right now is because men feel isolated and they cannot get help for things like depression because of toxic masculinity. Therefore, expressing their emotions through violence is the only way. This is exactly what Riverdale does and shows that even teenagers can do this too. I feel that if more people were aware of this, then they would have a different outlook on companies like Gillette. Most people do not know the background on this problem, so when a commercial like this pops out of nowhere, it can be perceived as attacking the male sex as a whole. After learning about this problem in class, analyzing it deeper, and finding more examples of how it is shown in pop culture, I can see the damage it is doing to the society. Most of pop culture reinforces the traditional stereotypes of men and ideas that are unrealistic and outdated. Also, since this is a problem that is not well known, it continues to do more damage and more pop culture medias continue to be released. All of the artifacts I found are popular medias, and I would have never known the damage they are actually causing. I'm sure the rest of the society is the same and has no idea. There are some advocates who are fighting to make a change, but they are not featured or made well known to the society. So, this problem will only get worse if it continues to go unnoticed. All of the artifacts that I found support my thesis that this problem is unknown, with the exception of my two artifacts of the literature and art. But these people are so little well known that it's not making as big of a difference as it should.